Financial Planning and Supervision Commission for the City of Norwood. I'll call the roll. Mayor Schneider.
Present.
Council President Miracle let us know that he couldn't make it. Mr. Schwartz could not make it as well. Mr. Shepard could not. Ms. Longenecker.
Present.
Mr. Jarvis.
Present.
Ms. Hanrahan here. Approval of the prior meeting's minutes. I think we were here. Yep. So we have a quorum of the people that were here. Give you a chance to look them over. I know it's been a while since January, but I would take any amendments.
I would make a motion to approve, but I type them up, so it's probably not best for me.
Yeah, you can move.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Okay.
I second.
Marcy seconds. I will call the roll. Mayor?
Yes.
Marcy?
Yes.
Mr. Jarvis?
Yes.
Ms. Hanrahan, yes. Okay. All right, we go on to the Financial Supervisor's Report.
We do not have financials in front of us. They are reconciled, well, they have closed out the books up through April of 2022. I have reviewed those things. I have some questions into the city. Most of those have been addressed, and we are still looking at a few of them. We'll have financials at the next meeting, and we'll talk about the reconciliation in the next thing now. That's all I had on the financials. Other than right now, at the end of April, they were where they needed to be for revenue collections, and they were below expenditures overall for the general fund at targets. So I can let you guys know that I did look at that. So.
Fine.
The next topic would be the discussion of the revised recovery plan. I believe you guys received that, plus you have it in front of you. It was to be updated by March. It was updated by March by the city. There were still some issues that had to be addressed even after that had been approved by council. Therefore, there was an extension for it to be reapproved by council and then come to the commission. It was last approved, the revised portion, which is in front of you on May 24th by council. And it did change somewhat from the March one, so now you have a better product in front of you. We have looked at this. The mayor can answer most of the questions on this, but I will point you to pages 20 and 21, which is where you'll see the ending balances estimated for the general fund.
Okay.
Or 20, yeah, hold on. Yeah, 20 and 21. You will see that these are positive going out. They are declining. They were declining in the last FRP as well, if you did a comparison. On the next two pages, on page 22 and 23, is the street and state highway funds. They are also positive in all 5 years with declining balances, but there's many street projects that are needed, which we've talked about for many years now. So those are the three funds that are within the FRP. You do have your normal attachments for the capital plan that kind of lays out some of their bigger projects that they need to do in the next 5 years. And then also their staffing for the next 5 years within the forecasted periods and what is being funded. So with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor, and then if you guys have questions, either one of us could probably answer those.
So I would like to key on the improved product. I don't really call it, the plan is not, the auditors might call it improved product. I look at it as a huge amount of work, and Jim Stith, the auditor, and I have sat down numerous hours, and he and his staff have sat down even more hours putting this together. Jim and I went off of the original budget numbers that were provided to us in late '21. We had some revisions that were provided to us as we went through. Of course, we're in the 6th month of 2022. Every department head is wringing their hands because funds have not been put in place for certain parts of it. One that I look at is the police department and fire department. Both emergency services organizations have a lot of pending challenges that require funding that we need to get in place. So those are areas where they've been coming back to the administration and saying, when is this going to happen? When can we move forward? You know, and it might seem very simple to state that, but when you put it in perspective, our police training academy, we would like to be doing some de-escalation training. We'd like to be doing gun safety training. We'd like to be providing services to the community that are really critically important, in my opinion, in the world we live in today. But we don't have enough money in materials and supplies to do those things, to even offer some of the stuff that we should be doing. Even some of the training that the police department should be getting right now, we don't have funding in place to do some of that training. It's in the budget. They asked for it back at the end of the year. You know, we primed them through all of '21. We prime all the department heads. Get us your information. We need to know what you need for '22. Well, like I said, we're in the 6th month. It's tough on them to go this long without getting the proper funding in place that they were asking for 12 months ago, that they talked to contractors. And that's another big part of that, is contractors provide bids and proposals, and typically they say good for 60 to 90 days. Right. Not anymore. They're 30 days. And if you don't grab that right then, the price just went up another 30% because of inflation, because they know their workload is increased. So we're going to have a lot of challenges even now getting the work and the things that we want to get completed this year at the prices that we asked for. So I think it's important to keep that in mind, or to keep it all in perspective of what this has really been a challenging year. It's curtailed a lot of things that should have taken place earlier in the year and should be taking place. As you go through, and we spend a lot of time going over these assumptions, and we appreciate clearly the Auditor of State's office has came back to us and said that needs to be clarified. You need to be more clear in these points, and that is a big part of what these assumptions are, and helping others understand exactly what's taking place. Just to point out I highlighted a few items that I think are important. We have been working through, and I think part of when we say this is a better product, we've finalized all 3 of the union contracts, and of course personnel costs are always going to be a major expense. It's within the any type of financial planning for a community. But we worked with the 4 unions. We've got them squared away. We worked heavily on our healthcare portion of it. We feel like we've got good plans, and we worked closely with them. It was It was working with the unions to come up with mutually beneficial programs and processes, and quite frankly, I can't speak highly enough about the union leadership that has worked with the city and helped us actually formulate plans to improve where we're going financially. So that was a big part of it. If you're looking at, other expenditures, health insurance was one area where there was a target set a few years ago on health insurance to get up to 5% of the employees putting, and we feel comfortable we're moving in the right direction. And the employees recognize the need and for them to be involved in this process. And they've sat down at the table with the administration and worked through those things. So I'm very comfortable with that. Again, another reason why this is better product. We had a little more time to work on some things that were necessary. Looking through the budget request that all the different department heads gave us, we didn't just, it's very easy to say, if you're budgeting, say for your home finances or even in business, you can look at the historicals and you can say, okay, this is historically what we've spent and this is how much inflation is going to be. Just bump it up by that amount. But the city of Norwood could not and cannot do that, especially coming off of years and years and years of underfunding and really deferred maintenance on different facilities. The work that has been done over the last 2 years, getting facilities, getting our parks back in place, getting new roofs on them, getting equipment back in place and back in shape, you can't look at that and say, well, if you funded it at $100,000 last year, let's just fund it at $100,000 plus the inflation rate. Because there's a portion of that $100,000 was deferred maintenance, was an overage that really shouldn't be budgeted back in there. And we should be utilizing that money in other areas. So that's been a real challenge of putting together a budget and making it really workable for the future. But I think that we have that, and I think with the guidance of the auditor's office, the state auditor's office, and then the auditor's office working closely with the administration, we've got, again, better product here. Is it perfect? I guarantee you that our department heads, once this is completed and once we've passed our final appropriations through council and get it in there, they will be scratching their heads going, why'd you cut that out, or why didn't this make the grade? But I think we have really some savvy department heads that will make things happen and we will get by. It still is a challenge for them. As we look at capital projects, there are still a ton of capital projects. And Anna Mary mentioned the declining revenue that we'll see through the years. Well, we are still challenged with a lot of catch up. I mean, there's concrete work. It's hard for the city, and I think I've said it to the Financial Recovery Commission before. It's hard for the city to go out and tell everybody, you need to replace your sidewalks. You've got trip hazards on your sidewalks. It's your yard's a mess. Your house needs this and that, when they can come and poke holes at the city and say, you're not even taking care of your own house that way. So we're working on a lot of those different projects still, and that you still see a lot of that in our capital projects. So I would say one of the other big areas is we really have increased and improved upon our recreational offerings, the amenities that the city provides to our community members, and they love it. They're absolutely ecstatic that we now have a recreation center with a fitness center, with an indoor swim pool, with a volleyball and volleyball court and all of those different offerings. But it does come at a price. Mm-hmm. And although we bought the building for $1 and it's a great building, there are still accessibility issues. They didn't give it to us because it was a fully functioning, 2022 brand new built building. So we do have to expend money to get that building up to ADA compliance, and we're going to be working on that over the next few years. But it's as they say, it's just taking one step after another, trying to move forward and make improvements. The last part of this, I would say, is staffing. We have increased, and I know they're doing interviews right now for public works people, but it's clear in the community that our Public Works Department is working better than they have probably in all the years past on maintaining our streets, maintaining our signage, maintaining our parks and playgrounds. We've got a great crew. They work hard. They're getting things done. We are following up with what work is being done through our C-Click Fix app, which tells us how much work is being done. And we recognize that, the level of work they're doing, adding a little bit more staffing is going to save us more money. Not only are we not hiring contractors as much because we don't need to, because we've got good staff and they're capable and they can get things done quicker and efficiently and effectively, but the contractor pool is just like every other business out there, having challenges with staffing, having challenges with their workload also. So it's good that we're doing a lot of that public works type in-house, and we'll continue to make sure we're utilizing those human resources possible. So I know that's a quick overview of it. If there are questions, we can go through. I know that Anna Mary I think the last one was revision 4 or 5 of different questions that she has sent to Jim and to myself. Jim has done a great job working with her. Some what you look at and say, well, how is that going to make that much of a difference? But then when Jim makes the changes, he scratches his head and we find out why she's made us make those changes. And it's been extremely helpful having her oversight and the oversight of April on these things also. It's a pain, and I'm sure she realizes when we get these emails, we're scratching, it's making our heads spin a little bit at times, but I think it's worth the effort. So, any questions or?
I just want to point out a couple of things that he did not hit upon. He really went over the expenditure side of the world. So on the revenue side of the world, I do want to point out that the earnings tax, the city did decline that in '22 and then increase it slightly going forward, and that's their biggest revenue source. One of the big reasons, and it's in the assumptions as well, is due to the work at home changes, and then that also affected some incentive agreements that they had, and one being a pretty big employer within the city. There were 3. They will not meet their incentive agreements, and then within those agreements there were some what they call clawbacks, which you'll also see under other revenues, and under that they were allowed, if they didn't meet certain requirements, they could get some of that incentive monies back based on a percentage basis and what year they're in within that agreement. So you'll see a huge bump one time in 22's miscellaneous revenues due to that. That's also why the line Fund 89 earnings tax incentives decreases so much in 22. We do expect maybe a little bit of incentive, but not to the extent that it was in prior years. So I want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. We've talked about the earnings tax and how the at-home is affecting certain municipalities and how that's working here. That's why it's been decreased a little bit, and we are watching how that revenue source is coming in, as well as the city treasurer's office and then council as well. So that would be one of the things I'd want to make sure that we hit upon. And then also on his assumptions on page 7, it talks about the salaries of the collective bargaining unit, and it was a 3% each year over 3 years that was given to the union. So that was built in across the board plus steps. Those were a couple of big ones that I wanted to point out, but if you guys have questions, please let us know.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's great. Looks good, it's very thorough.
Yeah. I would like to make a motion for the acceptance and approval of the Norwood City Council approved financial recovery plan.
I'll second it.
Alrighty. Boy, I need to do better. Mayor, I'll call the roll. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Jarvis,
Yes.
Marcy? Yes. Sharon? Yes. Okay. Very good.
Mr. Mayor, do you have the original copy?
I have,
You know, with the way they copy things
Yeah,
now, it
it's-
looks, the copy looks like
Yeah,
the
this looks
original.
like-
It's tough.
I mean, I have one that has colored printing on it. I don't know that I have the original copy of it.
Is that okay to use that or not?
Use
I'm
this one.
fine with it. Yeah.
Top line for you, just Houston.
Marcy, if you would sign and then pass it to Greg. All right. Going on to old business, new business. I don't know that you wanted to talk about the bank reconciliation.
I can do that.
Okay.
So in front of you, there's one page that I had put on the table. It has the City of Norwood Bank reconciliation for 2021 at the top. We're providing you some informational purposes only on this sheet. This is a summary of the work that we did with the city for 2021. So at the end is December, so this is the snapshot at the end of December. It shows you what the balances were on the books. And then the reconciling items are at the top, really summarized there. And then balances per the bank statements are the next section, and you'll see a variance of 0. We do have an unknown variance, which we have had in the past, but it's much lower than we have talked about when we went over the reconciliations. The reconciling items in the middle there That had been presented to the city auditor's office because they are in charge of the financials and the postings of the financial information in the system. That was being researched by them. We got the last information on May 9th. We'll be working with them to rectify their system and how to post those through the summer. We are also working through 2022. We had started it with January, February. We aren't where we want to be there only because they had some issues with Paycor. They now are contracted with Paycor to do the personnel and payrolls and all that stuff. And it took a couple of months for them to have a true upload that works fully, and then they had to work through manually putting stuff in their system. And if you've ever done that kind of thing, it is a big project to get them in the right pews, and then also getting the payments to the withholdings with whether it's pension state or therefore having the right information go to those places. And then that kind of backed up getting closeouts to have the information for the months. So they're still working through that, and then we will continue to work through the reconciliation even once we get them caught up on their system with the reconciling items and make sure that things stay going forward on a more current monthly basis. And just as a double check, we'll do that as they still are in fiscal emergency. So we've already talked about that in our office. So I just wanted to provide the snapshot, let you know where we are. We did work with both the city treasurer and the the city treasurer and the auditor's office, and we appreciate all the work that they and help that they provided to us. So,
Good.
that's that.
Yeah, that unknown is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, so that's very good. Mayor, you said earlier that you might have some things that you could point out or discuss on the report on accounting methods.
I do.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Ken Miracle has continued to lead the charge on working to tackle the report on accounting methods spreadsheet, and continues to have some different meetings with the different elected officials and offices. A couple of interesting parts, or parts that have happened out of my office, is the capitalization policy was completed. There was an ordinance passed by the city council. There's a purchasing policy is in draft form, working with the city's, one of the council committee to go through the purchasing policy and make sure we're on track there. And then water, we've all talked about, or we've talked at different meetings about the water meter replacement program that is getting started right now, and the policies and procedures that need to be put in place there as we move forward. That is going on right now. Training water billing staff occurs this month. And the water meter project will be completed. So that's another large policy. That's the water distribution system has been a challenge for us and for the office for quite a while. So we're working on those items. There's quite a few other ones I'm sure that the treasurer's office is working on. The auditor's office has completed a lot of theirs. But even other policies and procedures that we are working on. So we continue to make progress. Asset and inventory control, we've set some examples, and we're working on some of that. That's through our NORCOM operation. Let's see. There's still quite a few areas to improve and to put things into place, but even like the infrastructure, the city is using asset tags. We've got those in place. So a lot of these items, you know, when we started, there were, I think, 34 items, and we've narrowed it down quite a bit. There's a lot of progress being made, and like I said, Ken continues to lead that charge. One of the interesting things that is going to happen here this month also is the auditor's office is hosting it's a mandatory meeting for all the different departments that are putting in requisitions for funding and putting in and requesting POs to make sure that all of them are working on the same page. The auditor did a financial primer that outlines a lot of what should and does occur, but I think it'll be much better as they sit down and go through it. So the financial primer was a draft that he did towards the end of last year, and then we've had some challenges, but he's got a guide that's meant not to establish policy. The intent is to provide the basic understanding of the budgeted revenue and expenditure process for the city employees. And this is a living document, and I'm just basically reading from it, a living document meant to constantly change to meet the needs and answer the questions of city employees. It's meant to be used by anyone involved in the budgetary or purchasing of items for the city. It's important to understand that the city spends appropriations, not cash. While there must be cash in a fund in order to disperse monies, but it cannot be spent without approval of the legislative city council in the form of appropriations. And he does note that the city remains under fiscal emergency. This limits the budgetary and purchasing power of the city. The fact does not affect several of the processes described. So it's going to be interesting to get this taken care of. I think that we sort of hung our hat for a while there on VIP and on some new software systems that were going to come in, and employees do have the ability to look at and understand a little bit more utilizing that software. But we still are challenged at times with people making purchases where they feel there's a PO in place, but then find out there's not a PO in place, and there was never a requisition that was finalized or received or something. So it will be good to get that training completed also. So there's a lot of, I guess what I'm moving towards is, these accounting methods and the policies and procedures that were not there are being put in place, and we're working diligently to get our staff up to speed on them, and then to operate off of those policies and procedures. That's really all I had.
I would just make sure we remind the city that nothing is considered complete until our office states it is. So there is progress being made, but that also has to come to our side of the office, because we have to determine whether it meets the requirements to fulfill the comment that was within the report on accounting methods. So I have seen some of those that you did mention I have not seen, so I'll be really interested in looking at those, and I'm happy to hear the progress that's been made. So, and then there'll be other items that we have to test to make sure that they're in place as well.
Well, the city would ask of the Auditor of State, how many of those are complete that you have received, that you've actually sent back?
Not very many.
I don't know of one that you have sent back a letter saying this is complete, you can take it off your list, or something.
When we come and we do the meetings and we go through stuff, and Ken asked me, which has been a while, what ones are complete, which ones are in progress, which ones have not been started, we go through that. So the union contracts would now be complete again, because if you finalized and signed off on those, that'd be one, and then there's another one. I can't tell you off the top of my head that is complete, and then there were several that were in progress. So, and even with the policies and procedures, and council has to approve them, we have to make sure that what's in there is correct and meets the criteria of the comment. So getting those to us in draft form before they are approved would be good too, so that they don't have to go back into that, because we've had those issues at other places. I'm not saying that's an issue here. I'm just reminding the city that that has to come through our office, and we're the ones that say yes or no or partial.
I want to make you aware of a concern of the city, that it seems like this is never ending. It seems like as much as we work on these, that there's not a time where the Auditor of State's office says, you guys are done with that, we can move on to the next one. And you can say as much as you want about it's very fluid, and we've got to look at it and check it again and check it again. But at some point, there has to be a time where you go, this is completed. Now, we're going to look at it 6 months or a year from now, but it's completed, and I don't feel like we get that. And I'll ask Ken if he's received that information as the person who's sort of leading this charge. But at some point, there has to be a time where you feel, as a person who's putting out product, that you did it, that you've reached the goal line and it's completed. And I don't feel like we're getting there. I don't feel like that's something that any city employee who's done this, even with an ordinance in place, there's not a time where the Auditor of State's office has said, you're done, we'll look at that in 6 months, but you're done for now.
I understand your frustration. Our frustration is we're sitting here today and you've mentioned a capital asset policy that council has approved that we've not seen. This has to be a joint effort. We have talked and been down here and we have gone over the things that need to be in policies. There were 3 big policies that Ken Miracle sent to me. I took the time to review those. He and I scratched out what we thought was good. And the last I knew on those policies, it was sitting with legal. So I get your frustration, but I want you to hear my frustration also. I should not be sitting in a commission meeting hearing that a policy has been passed through council and we've never seen it. So we're going to have to work together. We want the city out of emergency just as much as you do. So I would suggest that whomever in the city is emailing, you feel like we're getting things and we haven't looked at stuff. There was a point where we did pause working on the policy things because this commission wanted reconciliation work done. So we shifted our focus. So that is true. But if there are things that you think the Auditor of State has that we have not fed back to you, I want a list. So whoever you think is sending us stuff and we're not responding, you send me the list and I can assure you it will be dealt with.
My concern is not that we are sending things to you. The concern is that the answer is typically, we'll look at it, we'll look at it later, we're going to have to review it again. There's no closure to items that have been sent. And I will provide you with a list. We'll get a list of those things. And I will much more diligently watch what Mr. Miracle is working on and make sure that when things are closed out that it gets sent to you. But my concern is that when we do complete these things, we're not told, okay, that looks good, we're finished. And it might be, I don't care if it's only 3 things. I'd like to be able to come to the commission and say, I know these 3 items have been taken care of and they're done. And the Auditor of State's office to say, Mayor Schneider, you're absolutely correct. Those 3 things are completed. I don't feel like we have that. I don't feel like Ken Miracle can tell me that. That's the part that's discouraging. And to tell me, hey, looks pretty good right now, but it's fluid and we're going to have to review it in a couple more months and we'll get back to you on it. That's not closing something out. That doesn't give me the satisfaction of saying it's completed, mark it off the list. That gives me a leave it on the list because maybe later on they'll approve it, but maybe later on they'll find a weakness in that procedure and we'll have to review it again and it goes back through. It just that somewhere along the line, I feel like there's not closure, and I have no problem working to provide that list, and I have no problem working to make sure that you get that information. That's something I can work with Mr. Miracle on.
That would be appreciated.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other old business or new business for the commission? I have none. Nope. Mayor, anything else you'd like to add?
Really, just that, it is recognized, it's been recognized by council members, it's recognized by the treasurer's office and the auditor's office, all the hard work that the Auditor of State's office does with the city auditor and with us to keep us on track and going the right direction. With that being said, there's a ton of work that's being completed in City Hall to get these reports together and to get things done. There's a ton of work that's being done by the department heads to get budgets together, and then even when this money is put in place, appropriated, which now the next step is this has to go to city council and appropriations have to be put in place. The work's not done. I'd like to think that, wow, when that's done, everything just poof happens. But now we've got a very short period of time. And you can say, well, it's the beginning of summer. No, it's June. July and August are months that we can get work done. We should have had a ton of work already contracted and scheduled. We're so far behind. And it's going to be a big challenge for our department heads and project manager to get things done with it taking this amount of time. So hopefully in the future, reconciliation is looking great, and next year, which to me is right around the corner. We're not working one season ahead in this, we're working a couple seasons ahead. We're working on, our street resurfacing projects for 2024 and 2025, figuring out what we're doing. So there's a lot to this, but I would hope that in the future that we're not 6 months in before we actually give our department heads the approval to work on projects, because it makes it really tough on them to get things done this year. And, we can applaud ourselves for having a carryover of funds, but I don't see how that the carryover that's projected right now is going to be much higher, because there's going to be a lot of projects that cannot be completed that we had said at the very beginning of this year, we'd like to get that done this year. So just, I'll come, I guess, with that same thing next year, saying it's tough to spend money when you don't get it until 6 months into the year, and, with the way schedules are, so.
I just like to say, I think this boils down to just a management of expectations, and, this is a situation that's serious, and, sometimes there are repercussions from it, and, I understand your frustration, but I just think that we need to keep in mind that we need to manage our expectations, because everybody's trying to do a good job here, and, sometimes things just take a little longer than you expect, so.
Well, my friends, it is down to determining the next meeting date and time. I hadn't really had too many thoughts about it, quite frankly.
We're out August 17th through the 19th of 2020, I'll say that. I
Okay,
don't know how early you're looking at.
I was thinking more like September or so. I really have I'm trying to think now, Mr. Schwartz doesn't like it too early because of closing the prior month. I'm trying to think about that. Labor Day is the 5th. Is there a better day? I was thinking perhaps the 14th of September, which is a Wednesday at 9.
That's fine with me.
Looks good with me.
Mayor?
At 9 in the morning?
Yes.
That should be okay with me.
Okay. All right, so let's, let us put down September 14th at 9. All right. If there is no other business for the commission, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Marcy moves, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Jarvis seconds. On a voice vote, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposing votes? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.